Hello and welcome everyone watching me today at TechSparks 2020. My name is Aseem and I work as a senior product manager with cloud security business at Akamai Technologies. First, to begin with, I want to thank you all for being with us here, providing us with this an opportunity. I also want to thank your story to provide us with this platform to connect with amazing people like you. So in today's era, the digital economy is transforming faster than ever, creating a world where everything is hyper-connected. Uh, this calls for a complete rethink of how organizations, particularly financial services, need to engage with their customers. One needs to think about not only being truly digital, but also building digital resilience, without which one cannot harness the true power of newer technologies. India, as it stands today, is among the top two countries globally on many key dimensions of digital adoption. It's incredible to see India becoming more digitally advanced each year. It's becomes an essential part of digital landscape as the availability of smartphones and high-speed internet has increased rapidly. It's digitizing faster than most other economies, both maturing and emerging. By 2020, there will be projected 829 million smartphone users, or roughly about 60% of the population, according to the Cisco's 30 annual Visual Networking Index. Overall, the connected devices ecosystem in India is projected to grow from 1.6 billion in 2017 to 2.2 billion in 2022. COVID-19, as we all know, has only accelerated digital transformation as many of us now fully rely on internet as core functions to carry out our daily chores, including banking, payments, entertainment, whatnot, right? FinTech in particular is seeing a high traffic growth on their platform. It's more important than ever to ensure that today's FinTech platforms are able to cater to the increased consumer demands and are able to scale their operations not just only for users, but also handling large cyber attacks on the internet. When one think of fintech, the first thing that comes to our mind in relation to technology specifically is APIs and the API platforms for fintechs, right? So today it's extremely impossible to think of any great digital experience without understanding or without even thinking about how APIs have transformed their experience, right? So we have APIs today are the center of every digital experience. What that it provides with most of the organizations, including fintech, is uh, the ability to bring services to the market much quicker, right? The ability to extend services and partnerships to products beyond traditional reach, especially in the financial services segment, right? It acts as a collaborative market space with opportunities to collaborate with third parties and other players, right? You are able to think beyond traditional products and are able to launch products to the market which tailor very specific customer needs and even beyond what we have today, right? APIs are also very heavily invested in analytics and artificial AI today, right? Most of the organizations consume APIs specifically for enhancing their analytics capabilities. So that's where cloud really become an integral part of this journey, right? Uh, Organizations are able to expand their businesses globally because APIs are fully digitally driven, and that's where the expansion on the digital markets is much quicker, right? And at the end of it, cloud automation and robotics is a newer age, cutting edge technologies that are being heavily utilized in fintech space today. Now, with all of this happening on API front, one of the expectations from API is to make communication exchange lighter and faster. However, for most of the fintechs, failure to plan for and to overcome challenges of using both established and nascent technologies to deliver the disruptive financial services is actually slowing down some of them. With explosion in consumption of APIs and digitally connected services and mobile ecosystems, it is really important for fintech companies to not just think of digital disruption, but also digital resilience. but it's not easy to build digital resilience, is it? Right? When you think about building a digital platform, there are three important parameters that you need to keep in mind, right? One of that is how will the platform perform? Because from the user perspective, any decrease in perceived value as expectation increases, the whole usability as well as the adoptability feature comes down, right? The other important factor is personalization. uh, some of the organizations today not know who and what is influencing the buy, right? So inability to create hyper personalized experiences is another key factor that needs to be factored in for digital resiliency. And more importantly, the cybersecurity aspect of the platform, right? Because you are interacting with a lot of users, and a lot of users have their data stored on your platform or interacting through your platform, right? So data protection becomes a top worry for most of these users today, right? And with more and more breaches that we're seeing today, specifically from the APIs, the users have begun to understand and rather adopt the platforms that give them more assurance of protecting their user identities and data. Our mobile and app ecosystem have transformed the way Indians shop, eat, travel, bank, trade, consume knowledge today. All of this at a click of a button. But delivering that great experience on app and website is increasingly becoming challenging, right? First of all, if you look at the Indian internet ecosystem, right, we are talking about a big network diversity. We are talking about unpredictable network conditions, right? Uh, and websites are becoming much heavier by the day. It's it, the companies have to look beyond just static images. There is a lot of interactivity on the internet today, and that's where more image-based and video-driven websites are getting more popular, right? So it's all about having the right content and interactivity to ensure that consumers get that engaging experience while they're navigating through your apps as well as websites, right? So all of that requires you to think ahead of your competition. And many, based on the research, we've seen almost one third of the users are likely to switch to a competitor's app if they do not have a right app experience, while they're interacting for making some transactions through your app. The other problem is, unpredictability of traffic based on the different diverse conditions, and not knowing your audience well enough. And I'll give you one example out here, which may resonate with financial services. Uh, However, the same can be thought of in practically every situation, which brings more crowd than expected, right? So in this case, what happened is, for one of the banks, um, there was a cyber threat where somebody cloned the cards. So it's what we call as card skimming, right? So once the card skimming fraud happened, uh, the word got out on the social media. So somebody posted on the social media saying that there is a card skimming happening. Please protect your money and accounts. And suddenly you see this getting extremely viral on the social media, and a lot of consumers of that bank started checking their wallets, or started checking their bank accounts right after. So within an hour, the entire nation was aware, whosoever had the accounts here. More than 6 million users logged in, right? And this brought down the net banking system for the bank, right? If you look at it, there are two different disjointed storylines, right? There's a card skimming happening, and the users whose account were not even breached into suddenly had a necessity of going online and checking their bank accounts to make sure that the money is safe or the money is not tampered with, right? So from what we can get out of it is that organizations should always be prepared for flash crowds, unexpected sort of crowds, right? You need to have develop and exercise the run books around how much you are able to scale the traffic to in case of these unseen circumstances, right? You need to be able to understand the risk to your business because of such situations, and that's what will make a better plan for you to be prepared unexpected traffic spikes, right? So some of the things that you need to be considered today, or rather ask yourself as fintech companies, is how quickly can you scale to handle the load, especially now in COVID-19, where we're seeing uh, traffic growth like never before, because most of us are completely locked up. We're not really even willing to go to the ATMs to withdraw money. A lot of transactions are fully digital now, right? And you also need to be able to understand if your traffic forecast is being projected very low, right? And this is where ongoing monitoring is really important, right? Um, and also, you need to ask yourself this hard question: how quickly can you identify the cause of bottlenecks and implement the fix for it? And on the other side, if you look at the APIs, specifically the ones that power the fintech platforms, right? APIs tell a different story altogether, right? Basis of the analysis, the business perceive APIs to fulfill the business needs very quickly. But when you start rolling out your APIs, it's not a flowery bed all the times, right? We've seen many organizations realize that APIs fail to meet their expectations, right? Uh, we've seen a lot of organizations stop using API because they found it to be too buggy. They encountered performance issues. They expected the functionality to be something different. It turned out to be something different, right? And more importantly, a lot of APIs today have inherent security issues, right? And we've seen time and again that attackers are leveraging APIs more to craft the attacks now, what they have done in past. The other important aspect of you know building the digital resiliency is to make sure that users have safe and secure online engagements, right? um, and this is extremely important, specifically for the financial services organizations, including fintech, right? um, Let me give you a quick glimpse of what sort of threats we are seeing with financial services during this year. So financial services, based on the analysis that we've seen this year and even in previous years, financial services, including fintech companies, continue to remain the choice for cyber attacks, right? And obviously, a lot of that has to do with the financial motivation of the attackers, right, behind these attacks. So we see DDoS attacks still being very prevalent against financial services institutions, including fintech. And in fact, in terms of the newer targets, not the repetitive targets, but the newer targets per industry segment, financial services still lead the way, meaning the attackers are always continuously trying to find the new companies to target for, right? Versus the other industries where we see some of the companies getting repeatedly target over and over. The reason being, some of the financial services organizations have invested very heavily in security. When the attackers try to launch attacks, they quickly realize that it's not going to work, and then they start looking at the other targets as well, right? Web application attacks continue to haunt financial services industry. We see a huge chunk of SQL injection as an example, which is trying to exfiltrate the user data or trying to get access to the systems, username and passwords, right? And the other thing is the APIs specifically are being more targeted. The concentration of attacks on APIs on financial services today is higher than any other industry that we have seen. More so because of the reason that if the attackers are able to break into the systems of financial services organization, they are bound to see much more fruitful results versus what they see in the other organizations. As per the latest state of internet security report, from Akamai, this further validates, our hypothesis and the analysis done on the platform that I explained earlier. This is a specific, data points in relation to the credential stuffing attacks, where the attackers are using automated scripts and bots to break into the login systems. This is more on the global scale, but if you look at the data specifically for credential stuffing or credential abuse attacks, you see that India features at number two in a global rank, meaning in terms of target countries, uh, India has risen in that particular aspect as well because of the factors that I explained earlier. We have more connected devices now. We have well connected internet ecosystem. A lot of these devices might not have right security posture. Um, and there are a lot of companies that have begun to use APIs now than what we used to do, pretty much 5 years ago. And hence, the attackers naturally shift to a place where they see more opportunities, right? So while United States continue to be the number one target, India has risen up to number two target just because of the explosion of digitally connected devices and services that we have available in the country today. Out of more than 600 million internet users in India, 90% and above have mobile phones as a de facto standard for interaction with web services, right? Which gives bad actor a massive attack surface to work with, right? No surprise that mobile malware is on the rise and attacks on the mobile platforms are on the rise, right? Many organizations today have multi-cloud deployments and strategy, but they lack robust and consistent security measures across to cover such cloud deployments, right? Because a cloud provider A might not care too much about what sort of security you have on cloud provider B, right? These are the disjointed security postures per se, right? And hence this becomes a problem for the organizations to maintain a consistent level of security across any cloud deployments that you have without increasing the cost significantly and adopting to a new computing model such as Akamai Edge as an example, right? The significant growth in API traffic has significant ramifications in the security industry as well. Many, if not most, the controls that we have in place today are designed to monitor the traffic that comes from the user browsers, which is typically a non-API traffic. And because of this explosion of the API services and the consumption, we've seen that web APIs have become a primary target of cyber criminals today, right? And it's not just um, the traditional attacks like SQL injection or cross-site scripting that target web application vulnerabilities, but we see that APIs get 4 times more attack on their login endpoints. As an example, right? So APIs have broader security problems and are often left vulnerable because organizations today uh, really do not have a full visibility into their API ecosystem, nor they are able to comprehend how bigger this API security problem is. So in terms of APIs, right, API brings high expectations and broader challenges. The reason is APIs are mostly business driven in nature, right? So business cares about innovation, speed, it cares about providing service stability, it cares about releasing products to the market faster, generating new revenue streams, right? From the attacker perspective, attackers are always looking at things like, how to break into the API systems. That's where you look at activities like account takeover, data breaches resulting from the APIs, fraud for banking and payment related processors, service disruptions. Those are some of the things in mind when the attackers are looking at APIs, right? From the legitimate user perspective, you need to think about governing your APIs. You need to make sure that there is a appropriate, usable policy which is set for your APIs, right? How do you make sure that unauthorized use is curbed out for your APIs? How do you make sure that your APIs are able to handle the legitimate performance and load, given that a lot of the users today uh, are not really looking to go to the banks, especially in the COVID situation, and everything has to happen online. And one of the important things for organizations to think about is to understand or try to comprehend why API security is so hard today, right? Now, uh, some reasons that come to my mind. One is, having the right level of access controls. So organizations need to think about how to restrict API usage and against what. That's really an important point to consider. The other thing is the use of traditional or inappropriate security controls, right? You cannot just think about having a firewall and making, or rather, um, putting that as a practice for protecting your APIs. So using traditional methods for API security is no longer going to be useful for the organization, or rather is not useful for the organization right now as well, right? The other important thing is organizations often undervalue or underevaluate the risks that APIs bring to their organizations, right? Because they do not have complete visibility to all API services and microservices. So, not knowing that a API endpoint might have 100 microservices, as an example, attached to it, you will not know the risk of what happens if that API endpoint goes down, right? It's not just one API endpoint, but it's 100 microservices that will potentially get impacted if an API endpoint is not available, right? And the current state of API security is half baked, unfortunately. We've seen time and again that the organizations rely on traditional measures to protect their APIs. Not many organizations have API security as their priority, right? So we're still relying on things like encryption, which I'm not saying we don't need. Encryption is really absolutely necessary to have, but as you know, that security is all about defense and depth, right? And the more depth your defenses have, the more are the chances of you holding up against the large scale cyber attacks that we're seeing today, right? We see organizations still relying on basic mechanisms like rate throttling, just basis on how much requests you want to allow for specific IPs. Some of the measures are just purely signature based, which using which you're not, or rather will not be able to have a robust security protection for APIs, because even if you look at OS best practices, at bare minimum you need to think about having both negative and security positive model, positive security model, to be able to mitigate the threats against APIs, right? Access control mechanism is also something that organizations really need to work upon. We still see use of basic access control mechanism, which is inherently weak. We have seen many organizations hard coding their APIs, or the API keys get leaked out on the internet, which basically defeats the purpose of having API key for authentication in first place itself, right? The top of this pillar is where we see majority of the gaps today, which is organizations not really having the robust API testing strategy. Um, they do not know what to test and how to test it, because a lot of testing frameworks are still being built upon, or rather utilizes the templates that are built for testing traditional web services, right? API governance is another very key important factor, to have API security as a part of your whole risk governance framework, and at the same time having a API specific governance in terms of having SLAs attached to the API availability, confidentiality and integrity, right? Uh, it's really important for you to think about scale when you're dealing with APIs, right? Although APIs are typically thought of as lightweight, faster sort of communication, but given the amount of the traffic that we see today on the API platforms, you need to be able to scale your API services, something that you haven't seen prior, or something you've not been prepared for, right? So having the platforms that give you instant scalable options without having to manually interact with that is a really important step, for the organizations to have the right API security measures, right? And on the top is having a robust application security framework and practices and assessment, which are tied up to the API security as well. So for many organizations today, including fintech and financial services, it is about striking the right balance, right? So while customers expect to be safeguarded, they also demand fast, convenient online experience. That's where it really becomes important for the organizations to have a security that is frictionless for the users, right? And it's not something easy to do, and it's most likely in all the cases it may not be a business goal that the fintech or financial services is aligned to, right? And that's where we need the more wider usage of having a partner ecosystem or a broader partner ecosystem that you can work with, choosing the right partners that can help you achieve that balance. So for in terms of what we believe will really help fintech build that digital resiliency in their platforms today is to look at the options or build the platforms that are always on and always available, right? You need to think about delivering high performance mobile experiences. Mobile is the way to go. I'm sure most of us are already talking about the next level of mobile experience, right? Because it's really very difficult to think about uh, any organization that do not really want to have app or mobile based strategy specifically in the segment of financial services and fintech, right? You got to make sure that you secure your APIs, user experience, and user identities, because uh, trust is an important factor across financial services, be it traditional banking or fintech organizations, right? And it's all about doing this in a very elegant way which brings simplicity and agility in security as well as the user experience. And I absolutely understand, while this is extremely desired, it's not something that is easily achievable, and that's why we are here, right? Akamai is the world's largest distributed edge platform. Our mission is to deliver a fast, reliable, and secure internet that enable our financial services customer to grow their businesses, right, in any geography, uh, to deliver world-class products and services without having to worry too much about the scale, the experience aspects of it, and to enable them to have a competitive edge over the others. So with that, I conclude my presentation. I hope you found it useful. I'll be happy to take any questions now.